You can't choose your opponent, obviously, but are you happy playing a team that you saw recently and obviously that you won the last game against?
I mean, I think you said it best. You don't ever want to choose your opponent and say, yeah, we match it. They're a good team. They've been a top-ranked team all year. They pounded us on a Friday night there. We, responded on Saturday and was able to turn the tables on them Saturday. They're an explosive team. They have a goaltender that's experienced, that's big, that can come up big in playoff series. They have an outstanding power play. They get a ton of offensive weapons. So it's a dangerous opponent. It's an opponent that we're familiar with, just like you said, because we had played them just a couple weeks back. So I think both teams will know each other extremely well. There's a lot of factors in going into the series. Special teams will be a huge part of it. Goaltending will be a huge part of it. The exciting thing is your opponent, and you got 5 days to get ready for them, and that's what we'll do this week. And coming off 3 wins in a row, I think our guys have confidence, and now it's carrying it over into the playoffs.
Seems like we've seen when you have success against them, the best way to keep their offense down is to not let them have the puck as much. I know you've been able to do that. It's not an easy thing to do against them, especially in that building. What are the key factors for you in trying to do that, though, in trying to limit the time they have the puck, or just keeping, when they do have it, getting it off their six and being physical with them?
First of all, you can't sit back and try to defend against them. That's one thing. Staying on the offense and finding ways to play in the offensive zone is important. They try to spread you out with how they play with guys flying behind you, so we'll have to be aware of their speed and their play away from the puck. But I think, you mentioned, puck possession will be key. We can't give it away when we got it. I think that's the biggest thing. That's every team and every coach and every player knows. When you got it, you can't make turnovers and give them the puck more often. They make them work for it. So it's an explosive team that relies on the transition game. They relies on, as soon as the puck gets to their stick, them getting on the offense quick. So we'll have to be in positions to handle that and be aware of it. And like you said, hopefully keep it a lot more often than we give it away.
On special teams specifically, you don't want to extrapolate too much from one penalty kill, but looking at the success you had at the end of the game on Friday night, do you think that aggressiveness is also something you want to focus on the penalty kill?
Yeah, I think the penalty kill, the numbers aren't great, but I think the confidence in the players has grown as the year has gone along, especially the last few weeks. So that's been a good thing. We've made some adjustments. Seamus Malone's gotten a lot more time on the PK up front. We actually had Matthew Freitag getting shifts a little bit on the PK as well. So we've made a little bit of personnel adjustments to it to give some more guys a little bit more responsibility on that, and I think that's been good. But that team, the key for sure is to make sure you don't take 7 or 8 penalties. If you're one or two period max, whatever, you got a chance. But you get into the multiple penalties each period, you're going to have a tough time keeping them off the board.
Can you update where Keandre and Dominic might be as for this weekend?
Yep, they both skated on their own today. Tomorrow we're not practicing. They'll do the same thing. They'll skate on their own and hopefully work into practice as the week goes along. Their availability will depend on their progress that they have. I'd say Dominic's a little bit ahead of Key. But we're not ruling him out this weekend. We're hoping he'll be able to come with us on the trip and be able to participate, whether it be Friday. I don't know, but hopefully he'll be able to play this weekend.
Tony, where have you felt Keandre's absence the most?
He does so much for us. I mean, offensively, he jumps into play. I think that was a big part of his contributions offensively was something that, when you get a defenseman, him and Wyatt, especially those two that are up in the play every time they're on the ice, it puts a lot of stress on the other team defensively. His physical presence is, a big thing as well. He's just a solid two-way player that's having a tremendous year and an impactful year as a freshman. So we've missed him. I think the good thing is there's enough other guys that have absorbed more minutes and actually liked playing more minutes. I think Wyatt and Ty Emerson, Inamoto, all those guys, they've all thrived on it. Tishke, we already know, plays a ton of minutes and plays the same way. But I think those guys getting a couple extra minutes hasn't hurt them. It may wear them down a little bit more, and they might probably a little bit more bumped up and bruised because of it. But those guys have taken those minutes and handled them very well.
Obviously, a very emotional series this weekend, and to have Dominic and Key watching from off the ice, what's their desire to get back on the ice like, especially after watching those two games?
Yeah, it's killing them. I mean, they're players. Any player to have to sit and watch is really, really hard. You know, both those freshmen are having really big years, and it's hard being on the outside, not being able to be out there helping your teammates. So they've done everything they can rehab-wise and to accelerate their return back. And like I said, hopefully they'll both get that chance this weekend.
Coach, real quick, it almost seems like poetic justice in the sense that this weekend ended 2 overtime wins to sweep the series at home for the final regular season series. So that's the first thing. And also, you've mentioned growing confidence twice so far in the last 3 minutes or so. Do you think that's kind of what's helping your team maybe culminate everything at the same time, everything coming to fruition at the right time?
Yeah, the emotional victories over the weekend of being 2 overtime games, I think it's more significant than just winning games. I think just the fact that all year long we've been in a lot of games that have been exactly the same way, where you're down by a goal or you're tied in the third period, and we haven't had the positive results consistently. And to be able to finish off 2 games that were so tightly checked and so hard hitting and so competitive, especially games that meant so much to Michigan. They win either of those games, they get home ice advantage in the playoffs. On Saturday night, we were only playing for the fact that of a spot, but we couldn't get home ice. So we lost a little bit of that energy and emotion there for part of the game when we saw that Penn State had won and we couldn't get home ice. But the other team was playing it like a Stanley Cup Game 7 game. They needed that win for home ice, and we were able to compete with them and battle for them. And I think that little battle with about 6 minutes to go when the helmets were flying off and bodies were flying all over the place, got the energy in the building going, and it showed the fight that we had left in us to try to find a way to get that win. And I think that part of it shows that there was growth in our team as the year went along on learning to deal with games like that, and when they're on the line, figuring out how to dig down and find more to get it done. And so I think that's the encouraging part that happened in back-to-back games. And like I said, the game was more meaningful to Michigan as the game went on because of what was happening on the out-of-town scoreboard. So I thought that was a real test of character for our guys to suck it up after a really emotional game Friday. And then Saturday, you score an overtime goal that I think everybody in the building and everyone in hockey thinks that should be a goal. They take that away from you, and you're able to score just a few seconds later. I thought that was pretty exciting on how we handled all that. And the Mike Leckrone thing, I mean, let's not overlook that fact. That was an energized, emotional, spectacular night at the Kohl Center, and to finish with a win like that for Professor Leckrone, I thought was really fitting and will be remembered for a long time.
We've had a couple of, I guess, maybe wake-up call moments this season. The Ohio State series there, and then the Friday night game in Penn State. Do you see similarities in those? Because the first one led you into a 6-game, unbeaten streak to end the first half. The second one led you into the 3-game winning streak to end the second half. Do those kind of have similarities to you in your mind?
I didn't think of it that way. They were similar in the fact that the coaches weren't happy with those games, and we made some adjustments, and the guys have responded in both those situations. You hate to fall back on games like that as players and need those wake-up calls because you only have 40 games to play, so you should be able to get ready for all of them. So, but I do think that the game against Penn State on Friday night was one that our players were embarrassed by on how it went down. And their quick response and being able to turn it around, just 24 hours later against the same team was something that was important for them to gain confidence in each other, to say, hey, if we're going to salvage something out of this year, we got to change and make something, make amends for what happened, and they were able to do that and carry it over into this weekend. So a credit to the players and to the leadership. And again, Tischke and Malone, you watch how they play, and if you're on their team and you don't play as hard as those guys, you should be embarrassed. And I think those two guys have done an outstanding job of leading all the way through, and that was a big factor on the response from that performance.
Special teams and goaltending key come playoff time. How much confidence do you, the coaches, and the rest of the players have in Daniel Lebedev?
Well, I think that, he's been our guy the last little while. We've given him the opportunity, and, he's ready, and we're confident that he's ready. And, we brought him in here to be a starting goalie, to be ready for playoffs, to be ready for different challenges. He's battled through lots of different scenarios this year and handled it well. And we expect him to be ready and give us a great performance this weekend. And special teams for sure. And we just mentioned, that the adjustments we've made personnel-wise, getting a couple more seniors and upperclassmen on the PK unit is hopefully going to give a little more experience and calmness to that group.
Tony, have you got any more feedback on that goal that was disallowed? Whether it be from the league, whether it be from
I did. I didn't put a call in. Our head of officiating just sent a memo out to remind teams of the 5-foot rule on the line change. So what happened was in overtime, it's not supposed to be in regular season, but in the tournament, any goal that is scored, the referees can go back and look at anything to make sure the goal is legal. So was the net knocked off its mooring? Was there goaltender interference? Was it a high stick? Was there a hand pass? Was it an offsides? Was there too many men on the ice? And they challenged for offsides, but as they were going through the offsides, they looked to see if there was goaltender interference, and they looked to see if there was anything else just to make sure. And as they went through the replay, they thought there was too many men on the ice based on the positioning of the player changing behind the play. And that play probably happens 50 times in a game, and it's not called for too many men. But technically, by rule, if you're not within 5 feet of the bench when the other player jumps on the ice, that's too many men penalty. And unfortunately, that is in the rules that should be checked for on a review. And that's why the goal was disallowed. So like I said, there's probably, I don't know if it's 10% of the goals that are scored or 15% of the goals that are scored during a season that if you went back and you viewed that bench change, you might have 6 players on the ice, and that goal would be disallowed. So the league doesn't want that. The coaches don't want that. The fans certainly don't want that. That didn't impact the play. We didn't score a goal because we had too many men on the ice. It was something that moving forward, there will be some sort of rule change and adjustment to make sure that that's not part of the equation moving forward.